This video is packed with some useful techniques. One, how to write an expression both using English letters and Greek letters, how to put multiple expressions on a single execution group, how to understand the difference between assignment, i.e. definition, and equivalence that we use in equations, and then finally how to test those equivalences. Let's get started. Make sure you are using worksheet mode. That means you have an execution group. If you don't, go back to video 1 to make sure you know how to default to a worksheet mode. This is an execution group. If I click on the T, I can create a text group. If I click on the execution button, I can create another execution group. I can create an expression such as 3 plus 4 like we did last time. But if I put a semicolon at the end, that tells Maple that is the end of this particular expression. This allows us to write multiple expressions into the same execution group, 3 plus 4, semicolon, 5 plus 6. Or we can even put them on two separate lines, 3 plus 4, semicolon, end of the first execution group, shift enter, and it goes down to the next line, and 5 plus 6. You can also have it do a calculation where it does not print out the output, right? But to do this, you got to make sure you use a colon and not a semicolon, such as 3 plus 4, colon, shift enter, 5 plus 6, and it only produces the results from the second line. Now we begin to enter variable names and symbols. Be aware that Maple is case sensitive. The expression Alex and Alex may be two different variable names, but they are different. If I say is Alex equivalent to Alex, it will say false. To enter a variable name, you can use one that is straight out of the keyboard, such as X, comma, or Y, or Z. Or you can use some of the palettes. For example, let's put some Greek characters in. Alpha, comma, beta, comma, delta. In addition, you can take Greek characters and add letters or numbers to it, such as I say alpha 99, comma, beta ABC underscore 234. And those are two different variable names that will be used in our calculations. Finally, if you want to use just the keyboard to enter Greek letters, that's doable by just writing it out. Alpha, comma, beta, comma, delta. And when you hit enter, it recognizes those as the Greek letters alpha, beta, gamma, alpha, beta, delta. The other way you can do it is use the menu option when you hit escape. So if I say alpha and I hit escape, that turns it into the alpha character. Beta, hit the escape, it turns into beta. Delta, got to spell it correctly, hit escape. And let's say we want to put in the mathematical constant pi. That's always capital P, small I. If I hit escape, now it lists all the things that might start with pi, and you can choose the top one, and it will produce or change it back into the symbol pi. The next part of what we need to do is understand the difference between assignment and equivalence. Assignment means I am defining a variable name. Equivalence says everything on the left-hand side of an equation is equivalent, the same as everything that's on the right-hand side of the equation. So for example, let's say to P, I wish to assign the value of 5 over 10. So I hit colon equals, not just equals, and you will notice it will turn it into the symbol of colon equals, 5 divided by 10, and Maple will automatically convert that to 1/2. How about R is assigned the value, i.e. define 3.4, and that's what we see. And now within Maple, it will know the value of P and R. So that if I define delta, capital delta, hit the escape, it turns it into what it looks like a delta, colon equals P minus R. Then Maple will substitute into the value what P is, what the value of R is, and actually do that calculation there. You can also assign names to, or variable names to other variables. So let's say Scot is defined as cheese. Okay? And therefore, at this point, if I say what is R, what is delta, and what is Scot, it will return all the assigned values to those variables. If you wish to unassign Scot, let's say we don't want him to be cheese, then we say Scot is defined as the unassigned value of Scot. And a way to tell Maple that I want to use the unassigned value of Scot is to put single quotes around the expression Scot. So now what is Scot? Scot is Scot. Equivalence is like in an equation that the left-hand side has the same value, the same expression as the right-hand side of the equation. So we can say force 1 is equivalent to force 2. This is not to say that force 1 and force 2 are defined. In fact, force 1 is not defined as force 2. In fact, if I ask what is force 1 is still force 1. I can actually use this, and this is where it comes in handy, is to define equations. For example, my kinetic energy equation is K is equivalent to 1/2 times m times v squared. Then if I say, have I assigned the value of K? No, but I have assigned the value of K equation. Finally, it is useful to test equations to see whether the left-hand side is actually equivalent to the right-hand side. To this end, I've created an equation called equation 1, is defined as x is equivalent to y plus z, where x is defined as 3, y is defined as 2, and z is defined as 1. Let's hit enter, and you can see those are expressions. So what I can do is I can actually say, is x equivalent to y plus z, and it will turn true. Because equation 1 is defined as x equals y plus z, I can also say, is equation 1 true? And that is also true. Finally, what I can often say is the left-hand side of equation 1 equal to the right-hand side equation 1? And that will also come back as true. One other way people like to do this calculation is they actually like it to simplify by saying, hey, let's look at the left-hand side of equation 1. Let's subtract off the right-hand side of equation 1. If the two sides are equivalent, then the difference should be 0, which is the case here. At this point, we're actually starting to build a worksheet. If you start building a worksheet and you're going to put multiple problems in the worksheet, I always recommend you start the very first line with the word restart. This makes sure that when you hit enter, it will unassign all the variable names. Then, if you start to build your worksheet, for example, we've created this equation 1. Now, only equation 1, as we see down here, has a value. Then we can start putting the rest of the stuff in. For example, let's say we want alpha is defined as 3. And I don't want Maple to tell me that alpha is 3. So I put a colon in, and that makes sure that it's only we see is alpha, this expression. We don't see the output. Beta, 2, delta, 9. Is our expression, does it make sense? Equation. Is equation true? No, it is false. Oh, that's because I made a mistake. What I can do is go back to delta, and I notice, oops, that shouldn't be a 9, probably should be a 5. I change it to 5, and then what I do is I go back to the very top, and I hit triple exclamation point, and that re-executes everything and now my expression, my entire problem is done correctly. One other piece of advice that is useful, if you don't want to see all the output, you can hold the command button down and hit D, or in Windows you hold the control button down and hit D, and all the output is deleted. Of course, as we said, we can always hit the triple exclamation point and that will re-execute the entire worksheet. Finally, if we don't want to actually see a line, want to get rid of a line, we can, instead of just hitting enter, enter, enter back when we do, what we can do is we can hold the command or control button down, hit delete, and that'll delete an entire line. If you hold the control button down, hit delete again, it will delete the output as well. I recommend looking at the document that it was created for this video. It has some practice problems and in addition has some troubleshooting ideas at the very end. You can find them at gould.prof/learningmaple.